Exposed skin freezes in 90 seconds. At -50 degrees Celsius or -58 degrees Fahrenheit, air turns into jagged metal in your lungs. Yet families survive here by drinking horse blood and eating raw, frozen fish for caloric heat. Emperor penguins endure Antarctic blizzards, guarding their chicks through weeks without food. But as the temperature falls, something begins to change. The roads end. Then the towns disappear. Eventually, so do the animals. Where does life finally reach its limit, and can anything cross it? Deep in the Sakha Republic lies a settlement where the soil has been frozen for 10,000 years. Oymyakon remains the coldest permanently inhabited place on the planet. In 1933, the village recorded a temperature of -67.7 degrees Celsius, or -89.9 degrees Fahrenheit. This environment forces a total reimagining of human biology. Exposed skin freezes in less than 90 seconds. Breath turns into ice crystals with a distinct metallic tinkling sound the locals call the whispering of stars. Infrastructure here operates against the laws of standard engineering. Because the permafrost reaches depths of 1,600 meters, or 5,249 feet, indoor plumbing is an impossibility. Pipes would burst instantly. The frozen earth is impenetrable. To bury the dead, workers must burn coal fires for 48 hours just to thaw the ground enough to dig a single grave. Survival dictates a machine-like existence. Vehicle engines must remain running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from October to April. If an engine stops for more than 30 minutes, the oil solidifies and the metal block contracts, rendering the vehicle a permanent monument to the cold. Human energy is sustained by stroganina, thin shavings of raw, frozen Arctic cisco or whitefish harvested from rivers where the ice exceeds 2 meters or 6.5 feet in thickness. This high-protein diet provides the caloric density necessary to maintain a core body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The market sells only frozen meat and fish, stacked like cordwood in the open air, where the atmosphere itself acts as the only freezer required. Atmospheric conditions. 200 kilometers, or 124 miles north of the Arctic Circle, create a rare phenomenon above the village of Abisko. Known as the Blue Hole, a specific rain shadow caused by the surrounding peaks keeps the sky clear when the rest of Scandinavia is buried in clouds. This clarity provides an unobstructed window into the thermosphere. Solar winds collide with gas atoms 100 kilometers or 62 miles above the surface, igniting the aurora borealis. Local Sami tradition identifies these shimmering curtains as guavsahas, lethal spirits that demand absolute silence and stillness from those on the ground. This belief enforces a strict taboo against whistling or waving, as any provocation is thought to draw the spirits down, to snatch the souls of the living, or decapitate the offender. Along the perimeter of the world's most productive glacier, the Cermek Kujalik, the scale of destruction is measured in gigatons. This ice stream moves at a speed of 20 meters or 66 feet every 24 hours, pushing 43 million tons of ice into the bay daily. It accounts for 10% of all icebergs generated in Greenland. The physical presence of these giants is overwhelming, with walls of compressed snow reaching heights of 100 meters or 328 feet above the waterline. The history of this fjord is linked to the most famous maritime disaster in history. Forensic glaciologists believe the iceberg that struck the Titanic in April 1912 originated from this precise location. Its chemical composition and trajectory through the Labrador Current suggest a birth in Ilulissat. When these structures collapse, they trigger calving events that mimic the sound of heavy artillery fire. The sonic boom from a shattering iceberg can be heard for 20 kilometers or 12 miles, creating waves that threaten any vessel within reach. In the depths of these frigid waters, humpback whales weighing 30 metric tons filter feed among the floating debris. They navigate a labyrinth of crystal skyscrapers that are constantly shifting and groaning under their own weight. Within this factory of frozen monoliths, the water remains crowded with shards of ice the size of city blocks floating in a silent, deep, and deadly Arctic aquatic procession. In the deep forests of the Arctic Circle, the landscape is populated by tikilumi, or snow monsters. These are spruce trees buried under a layer of hard-packed frost so thick it disguises their biological form. The weight of this ice often exceeds 3,000 kilograms or 6,600 pounds per tree, turning the forest into a graveyard of white statues. This is the ancestral territory of the Sami people, who survive alongside herds of semi-wild reindeer. Their language contains over 50 specialized words for snow, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of moisture and density. To the Sami, snow is a navigation system and predictor of survival. To regulate their own physiology, locals use saunas heated to 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit before plunging into water kept at 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The archipelago of Svalbard serves as the final frontier for permanent human settlement. In the town of Longyearbyen, death is technically forbidden. Because the ground is permanent permafrost, bodies buried here do not decompose, preserving pathogens for eternity. Scientists discovered that victims of the 1918 Spanish flu buried here still contained active traces of the virus nearly 1 century later. This biological stasis makes the island the ideal location for the global seed vault. Carved 120 meters or 394 feet into the sandstone mountain of Plateau Berget, this facility stores over 1 million unique crop samples. It is designed to survive for 10,000 years, acting as a redundant backup for the planetary food supply in the event of nuclear war or climate collapse. Outside the reinforced concrete tunnels, the environment is dominated by Ursus maritimus. Polar bears outnumber humans here, with an estimated population of 3,000 across the islands. Local law mandates that anyone traveling outside the settlement limits must carry a high-caliber firearm, typically a .306 bolt-action rifle. The cold here is a permanent legal and physical framework. At 78 degrees north, the sun disappears for 4 months, plunging the archipelago into the polar night. During this time, the temperature often drops below -35 degrees Celsius or -31 degrees Fahrenheit. Residents navigate through a blue twilight where the wind chill can strip heat from a body faster than the metabolism can generate it. This environment requires constant vigilance against frostbite and starvation. This is the oldest and deepest lake on the planet, containing 20% of the world's liquid fresh water. During the freeze, the ice reaches a thickness of 2 meters or 6.5 feet, capable of supporting a medium-duty truck. Within this transparent layer, thousands of white spheres appear suspended in space. These are methane bubbles, flammable gas, rising from the lake floor and trapped instantly as the water solidifies. The ice acts as a massive acoustic resonator. As temperatures fluctuate, the ice sheets expand and contract, triggering tectonic scale cracks that echo across the basin. These sounds resemble thunder or seismic groans, vibrating through the feet of anyone standing on the surface. Despite the violent noise, the water beneath remains incredibly still. Endemic species like the Baikal seal or Nerpa maintain breathing holes through the thick crust using their heavy claws. These animals are the only freshwater seals in existence, surviving in a basin where the water temperature hovers just above 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the winter. Ice Festival, China. Every December, 10,000 laborers descend upon the frozen Songhua River in northeast China to dismantle its surface. They extract blocks of ice weighing up to 700 kilograms, or 1,543 pounds each, using swing saws and iron hooks. These workers harvest 180,000 cubic meters, or 6.3 million cubic feet of frozen water in just 15 days. This material is hauled to the city center to construct the Harbin International Ice and Snow World. At -30 degrees Celsius or -22 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice becomes as hard as granite. Engineers use precision lasers to shape structures that reach heights of 46 meters or 151 feet. These transient skyscrapers exist for only 60 days before the spring thaw causes the massive walls to destabilize and eventually liquefy. Standing 6,190 meters, or 20,310 feet above sea level, Denali generates its own weather systems independent of the surrounding Alaskan interior. Temperature differentials between the base and the summit often exceed 50 degrees Celsius, or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Even during the summer months, the upper slopes remain locked in a permanent deep freeze, where whiteout blizzards reduce visibility to zero. This isolation creates a psychological state described as the white silence. It is a sensory deprivation so absolute that the sound of a human heartbeat becomes a dominant noise in the void. Wildlife here operates on the margins of metabolic possibility. Dall sheep navigate vertical rock faces where the wind chill frequently drops to -40 degrees Celsius or -40 degrees Fahrenheit. They possess specialized hooves with a hard outer shell and a rubbery inner pad for traction on blue ice. Grizzly bears spend up to 7 months in a state of torpor, their heart rate slowing to 10 beats per minute to survive the caloric vacuum of the subarctic winter. Below the snowpack, pikas and voles move through a subnivean world, foraging for dried grasses, while predators like the Canada lynx wait for the slightest vibration from beneath the crust. At this altitude, the air contains 40% less oxygen than at sea level, forcing the lungs to work at maximum capacity to maintain basic cellular function against rapid heat loss. 10. Churchill, Canada. Churchill sits on the western shore of Hudson Bay, positioned directly in the migratory path of the world's largest land carnivore. For several weeks each autumn, the human population of 800 shares the streets with nearly 1,000 polar bears waiting for the sea ice to form. A 500-kilogram or 1,100-pound predator scavenging for food near a post office or a school is a standard occurrence. Residents leave their car doors unlocked at all times, providing an immediate escape route for any pedestrian who encounters a bear on the sidewalk. To manage this proximity, the town operates the Polar Bear Holding Facility, commonly referred to as the Polar Bear Jail. Bears that repeatedly enter the residential zone are darted with tranquilizers and confined in one of 28 cold cells. They are provided with only water and no food to prevent them from associating humans with a caloric reward. After 30 days, or once the bay freezes, they are transported via helicopter or specialized tundra buggy to the ice several kilometers or miles away from the town limits. This system prioritizes the preservation of the species over lethal force. In the shadow of Mont Blanc, the sport of alpinism was born out of a desire to confront the lethal cooling of high altitudes. Chamonix serves as a paradoxical intersection between extreme luxury and sheer vertical terror. Visitors stand inside a glass box at the summit of Aiguille du Midi, looking through the floor at a drop of 1,000 meters or 3,281 feet. Outside this transparent cage, the air remains thin and frozen, moving with a velocity that threatens the structural integrity of the steel cables. While tourists enjoy heated chalets, the mountainside holds the scars of centuries of failed summits. The luxury of the valley floor exists only because the peak above allows a temporary moment of observation before the next storm cycle arrives. Vatnajökull is the largest ice cap in Europe, covering 8% of the island's landmass. Beneath this massive white shield lie some of the most active volcanoes on Earth. When an eruption occurs under the ice, it does not produce a typical lava flow. Instead, the heat melts the base of the glacier, creating massive subglacial lakes that eventually burst through the ice wall. These events, known as Jökullaups, release volumes of water and ice blocks that can exceed the flow of the Amazon River, obliterating everything in their path. Deep within the glacier, the ice takes on a neon blue hue, so intense it appears artificial. This color is the result of extreme compression over centuries, which forces out all air bubbles and leaves only pure crystal. These caves act as a chemical archive of the planet. Trapped within the frozen walls are microscopic bubbles of air from thousands of years ago, preserving a record of the atmosphere before the Industrial Age. As the glacier moves, these caves groan and shift, their ceilings dripping with meltwater even in the depths of winter. The silence inside is deceptive, as the weight of the ice cap above exerts a constant crushing force that reshapes the interior tunnels every single hour. The Diamond Beach serves as a terminal graveyard for the Breiðamerkurjökull glacier. Massive ice fragments wash onto black volcanic sand, creating a field of transparent shards that contrast against the dark earth. These blocks weigh between 50 kilograms or 110 pounds and several metric tons. Salt water and the Atlantic tide carve the frozen remains into jagged shapes before they vanish into the ocean. This process continues 24 hours a day as the ice cap recedes further into the interior. Iraqi. Mount Cook stands 3,724 meters or 12,218 feet high, creating an alpine environment within kilometers or miles of temperate rainforests. This peak is the center of the Iraqi Mackenzie International Dark Sky Reserve. The lack of light pollution allows the Milky Way to illuminate the snowfields with enough intensity to cast shadows. Below the summit, the Tasman Glacier flows as a mass of ice covered in grey volcanic silt. This 27-kilometer or 17-mile-long ice river terminates in a proglacial lake filled with silt-laden icebergs. Winter in Patagonia strips the landscape of its human distractions. As the hiking trails disappear under meters of snow, the dominant predator of the Andes reclaims its territory. Pumas move through the silence, their pale fur camouflaged against the granite slopes of the Three Towers. These three massive pillars of stone rise over 2,500 meters or 8,200 feet into a sky thick with Antarctic mist. The wind here carries the salt of the Southern Ocean and the bite of a frozen continent less than 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles away. In the absence of tourists, the park reverts to a primal state where survival depends on stealth. A lone cat crossing a frozen ridge beneath the jagged peaks marks a return to an ancient, icy equilibrium. Most of the world's ice is in retreat, but the Perito Moreno Glacier behaves like an advancing army. This massive wall of blue ice spans 5 kilometers or 3 miles across Lake Argentino, rising 70 meters or 230 feet above the water's surface. It operates as a living fortress, constantly grinding forward under its own immense weight. The ice here appears unnervingly blue because the pressure is so intense it has squeezed out every microscopic air bubble, leaving a crystal structure that swallows all light except the shortest wavelengths. Tension builds where the ice meets the shore, creating a natural dam that traps the lake's drainage. As the water level rises on one side, the pressure becomes unbearable. This leads to the rupture, a violent event where the ice bridge collapses into the depths. When a fragment the size of a 15-story building shears off, the sound mimics a sonic boom that vibrates through the bedrock. This cycle of growth and destruction happens in real time, a rare display of geological power that refuses to wait for centuries to reveal its strength. At 5,486 meters or 18,000 feet, the Khumbu Glacier serves as a shifting gateway to the highest peak on Earth. This is a river of ice that moves constantly, creating a labyrinth of vertical towers known as seracs. The most treacherous section is the Khumbu Icefall, where the glacier drops over a steep rock face, causing the ice to shatter into unstable blocks the size of houses. Climbers must navigate this terrain while battling a dangerous combination of extreme cold and oxygen deprivation. The temperature regularly drops to -40 degrees Celsius or -40 degrees Fahrenheit, making every breath a struggle for survival. Sherpas carry heavy loads across aluminum ladders lashed over bottomless crevasses that can open or close without warning. The cold here acts as a preservative, occasionally revealing artifacts from decades of failed expeditions. The Karakoram Range is a brutal landscape of vertical black granite and ice. At Concordia, the junction where four massive ice rivers meet, the silence becomes a physical weight. The air is so dry and cold that moisture evaporates from human skin. Instantly, winds funneling through these high-altitude corridors reach speeds that destroy any equipment not bolted to the rock. Human presence is dwarfed by the sheer mass of the 63-kilometer or 39-mile-long Baltoro Glacier. High in the Altai Mountains of western Mongolia, the wind carries the scent of dust and frozen grass. In this high-altitude desert, temperatures plummet to -40 degrees Celsius or -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Survival here depends on a unique partnership between nomadic hunters and golden eagles. These birds possess eyes 8 times more powerful than a human's, allowing them to spot movement against the white snow from kilometers or miles away. The hunters ride through deep drifts on small, sturdy horses, using the eagles to harvest fur for warmth. Inside the jers, or felt tents, the air remains thick with the smell of burning dung and salted tea. This way of life remains unchanged by the centuries of winter. Every January, a massive sheet of white ice begins a 1,000-kilometer or 621-mile journey from the mouth of the Ama River in Russia. This phenomenon, known as Ryuhyo, transforms the Sea of Okhotsk off the coast of Hokkaido into a frozen graveyard of jagged plates. The ice sheets collide and stack into ridges, creating a temporary bridge between the land and the deep ocean. This moving landscape brings a surge of nutrients that supports a concentrated food chain. Stella's sea eagles, with wingspans of 2.5 meters or 8 feet, perch on the floes to hunt for fish. Beneath the surface, Cleone, or sea angels, float in water that hovers at -1.8 degrees Celsius or 28.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Tourists in dry suits now jump into the slush, experiencing a world where the sea behaves like solid ground. In the Yukon interior, January temperatures drop to -50 degrees Celsius or -58 degrees Fahrenheit. This intensity triggers a phenomenon where the sap inside spruce and pine trees freezes and expands rapidly. The internal pressure causes the trunks to explode with a sound like a rifle shot echoing through the timber. Small cabins built during the Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 sit as decaying shells, their wood preserved by the dry atmosphere. In this extreme environment, sound travels for many kilometers or miles, and the absolute silence eventually manifests as a ringing in the ears. Queen Maud Land is defined by Nunatak's jagged granite spires that pierce through a vertical mile or 1.6 kilometers of ice. These black peaks resemble the architecture of a different planet. Gravity drives katabatic winds off the high polar plateau, accelerating to speeds of 300 kilometers per hour or 186 miles per hour. These winds strip the snow from the rock, leaving only blue ice and barren stone. Research stations here operate as lunar outposts, elevated on hydraulic stilts to avoid being buried by drifts. Scientists tether themselves to steel cables when moving between modules to avoid being swept into the white void. This sub-Antarctic outpost hosts the highest density of marine life on the planet. Millions of king penguins carpet the beaches, their collective calls creating a chaotic roar that competes with the crashing surf. This island served as the final stage of the survival journey of Ernest Shackleton. After his ship was crushed by ice, he crossed the interior mountains using only a length of rope and a carpenter's adze to reach safety. The terrain consists of glaciers that tumble directly into the sea and peaks that stay shrouded in fog. Elephant seals weighing 4 metric tons fight for territory along the shoreline. The air stays thick with the scent of guano and the sound of barking pups. Katabatic winds scream down from the central highlands, flattening the tall tussock grass and creating sudden. The Ross Ice Shelf is a floating continent of frozen water the size of France. This massive slab measures several hundred meters or over 1,000 feet in thickness, extending from the land into the ocean. Beneath this shelf lies a dark, sub-zero world where sunlight never reaches. Research teams drilling through the ice have discovered species of fish and amphipods living in total isolation. The shelf acts as a plug, holding back the massive glaciers of West Antarctica. When a section breaks away, it creates icebergs the size of small nations that drift northward into the shipping lanes. The sound of the shelf shifting is a low-frequency groan that travels through the water for hundreds of kilometers or miles. This ice does not merely sit still, it flows toward the sea at a rate of several meters or feet every day. Explorers who attempted to cross this barrier in the early 20th century described it as an infinite white desert where the horizon disappears into the sky. McMurdo Dry Valleys consist of 4,800 square kilometers, or 1,853 square miles of barren rock and gravel. Unlike the rest of the continent, there is no snow. High-velocity katabatic winds descend from the polar plateau and evaporate every molecule of moisture in their path. This creates a hyper-arid environment where the humidity remains at zero. The ground contains the mummified carcasses of seals that wandered into the valleys hundreds of years ago, their bodies preserved by the cold, dry air. NASA utilizes this terrain to simulate the surface of Mars, testing rovers in a region that has not seen significant rainfall in nearly 2 million years. Physics breaks down at the center of the East Antarctic ice sheet, the site of the Vostok Research Station. In July 1983, the mercury plummeted to -89.2 degrees Celsius, or -128.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This remains the lowest naturally occurring temperature ever recorded on the surface of the planet. At this extreme, human lung tissue can freeze upon inhalation, if not protected by specialized thermal masks. Metal becomes brittle and shatters like glass, while diesel fuel turns into a thick, useless jelly. The scientists stationed here live in total isolation for months, suspended above a secret that remained hidden for eons. Four kilometers, or 2.5 miles beneath their feet, lies Lake Vostok, a body of liquid water the size of Lake Ontario that has been sealed under the ice for 15 million years. This subglacial reservoir exists in total darkness under immense pressure, yet it may harbor prehistoric life forms completely unknown to modern biology. Every breath taken at the surface is a tactical maneuver against biological shutdown. Dome A sits at 4,000 meters, or 13,123 feet, above the sea, representing the highest and coldest point on the Antarctic plateau. The atmosphere here is so thin and arid that it mimics the vacuum of space. Temperatures frequently drop below -80 degrees Celsius or -112 degrees Fahrenheit. Buried beneath this ice sheet are the Gamburtsev Mountains, a range as massive as the Alps that has not seen light in millions of years. Because the air is perfectly still and transparent, this summit serves as a window for telescopes to observe the earliest stars. As winter descends on the Weddell Sea, the emperor penguin initiates its breeding cycle on the shifting pack ice. This species refuses the seasonal migration followed by all other Antarctic life. Males endure 4 months of starvation while balancing a single egg on their feet, shielding it from a landscape that reaches -60 degrees Celsius or -76 degrees Fahrenheit. To survive gale force winds, the colony forms a huddle. This massive rotating circle of bodies functions as a communal heat engine, where members move from the lethal perimeter to the protected center. By sharing metabolic warmth, the birds maintain a core temperature of 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This social behavior overcomes the limits of individual biology. The survival of the next generation depends on a precise rhythmic rotation that ensures no single penguin remains exposed to the wind for too long. Surrounded by thousands of square kilometers or miles of frozen ocean, the colony represents the most sophisticated adaptation to cold on the planet. The huddle creates a microclimate of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of a polar blizzard. Every location on this journey serves as a stark reminder that nature remains an unstoppable force far beyond our control. But these extremes also reveal a deeper truth. Life is not quantified by degrees, but by the profound capacity for adaptation. From the huddling colonies of the Weddell Sea to the fire-thawed soil of Oymyakon, we have witnessed a resilience that defies biological logic. In the end, it is not the temperature that defines our boundaries, but our will to endure within them. Perhaps that ability to adapt is the most remarkable phenomenon on Earth.